Hi Align, hi Anuja. So as you all know that Winsport has been totally trying to bring newer learning experience for you. The hot notes, the power notes, the compilation of MegaMaster file, Ultimate Advanced file. So all these, evolution of material and combining the resources because it can get so vast. The dentistry is so vast, and every day the new studies, the new researches keep coming up. So to keep up with all the latest, recommendations, the guidelines, it is so important to keep a compilation which keeps on growing and expanding as the science grows. So to accommodate all the evolutions, the MegaMaster file, the Ultimate Advanced file, the hot notes and the power notes, they are your four important pillars that you do. And to practice all the information, the learning that you do during the program, the assessment test, the daily assessment test, as well as the weekly mock examinations are there to help you and assist you. So to even further improve the experience during the live class, especially the ones where I will be talking about the conceptual classes, um, I have developed a tool here because I'm going to be now taking you already have a lot of conceptual classes during the program. As you see, we have CV classes, we have special topic classes, the important article classes on all the subjects where the latest Australian Dental Journal articles and guidelines have been covered for you, have been highlighted for you, have been explained for you, and how the direct answers of the questions asked are there written in the guidelines. So that has been an amazing, helpful tool for everybody, which is provided to you to even improve the learning experience. What I have devised is a new tool called the Mind Maps and a weekly cue card performance test. So what we'll do is with the hot topics that you know, right? Every day you're supposed to read hot notes. Everybody's aware of that. This is the hot notes that you get, right? For every subject, all the crucial hot topics have been compiled. All the latest Australian Dental Journal guidelines and articles have been combined. The information combined, whether it's taking from Sturdivant, therapeutic guidelines, Odell cases, or the latest articles, they have all been combined and published under the hot notes. Every day you're going to be reading individual topic as you move along the program. And as we are going to start the program this Sunday, so Sunday, March 30th is our orientation session. And officially, week one, day one will be on the Monday. So I will again take you through the newer features on the app, explain the study plan again, give you the roadmap again familiarize with you what you all need to be doing on a daily basis and what you're looking forward to. So now every day you will be reading one hot note from a particular subject that you're preparing that week. Eventually you will be revising and re-going through them again. So all these hot notes you will read on Sunday or a weekend, maybe Saturday or Sunday, you will have one tutor support class with Dr. Anj or Dr. Kalai, who will help you even revise the hot notes all over again from the entire week that you did. So the program is a self-feeding and there is a feedback loop automatically added to the program and the plan. The plan itself is so organized. Every day is pick and absolutely, completely organized situation is there. And over the weekend, when you have a tutor support class with my two classes during the week, the third class every week will be for the revision of the hot notes. So the program is a self-feeding loop where the revisions are automatically happening. So students do not have to worry about when am I going to revise? Why am I not retaining anything? Because number one problem that happens is even when you put in the hard work, you think, why am I not retaining anything? Because of course there is a vast information and you are consuming so much information in little amount of time. To compensate that and to counteract that problem, we have brought our tutor support classes. Over the weekend, they will help you review, recapitulate everything that you have read over the week. So the support classes are extremely helpful, and that is what we noticed with the March batch. because we started their revision classes. This batch because became Spartans and became really strong batch, and the knowledge showed because of the revision classes and the support classes. So I'm sure you're looking forward to the same as well. Now bringing you to the surprise element that I told you on the group also yesterday, and I'm sure everybody's waiting to see that. During our conceptual live classes, some of them I will have as public sessions, and some of them I will have as our internal Thursday classes in our enrolled batch. So other than our new Ultimate Advanced File extension of the newer questions, so you will be reviewing and revising the concepts and topics as mind maps now. I'm sure you can see my screen. I hope it is visible, and you can appreciate that how it has even condensed the information, the broadness, and yet the most important crucial subtopics within a bigger topic. So if there is an operative subject and there are about 7, 8 big topics that get asked and about 7, 8 SBQs would be coming from that discipline, individual concept, so say about tooth wear is a concept, then I divided it into erosion, attrition, abrasion, abfraction. I will be talking about the two in today's class, and abfraction and attrition in the next class. Oh, sorry, abfraction and abrasion in the next class. So this is like a memory tool. Now, if you like, for our enrolled batch, I will be creating this for the topics that I cover. But if you want, slowly I can build this database. And actually, we have 100 hot topics. Did you realize when I give you the pictures of all the hot notes and hot topics from the 10 subjects and disciplines that we do here, you have about 100 hot topics that we prepare over the 5 months. I can try and slowly summarize all individual topics in these mind maps. Now, along with these mind maps, this is where it just starts. I'm so happy you guys are loving it, Archita. Thank you, Javaria. Thank you, Sirat. But so it's even the summary of the hot notes. It's just the last minute revision tool, or during the class when I keep it on the screen, you can just focus on broadly, your brain will remember these maps. So this is not something you have to spend hours on. You just keep it, like maybe like you have a study partner meeting in the last few days, just keep it, and this gives you the cues for what are the broader aspect of every concept. Yeah, exactly, Jagjeet. This is just like a last week, last 10 days revision tool. With your study partner, you open it, quickly go through it, and just, it's your imaginary pictographic way of memorizing everything that needs to be covered. It will guide you, okay, do I know all these things? Because SBQs are going to cover all these aspects. Now, when I teach you such mind maps during, thank you so much, Poojan, such a wonderful comment, and I appreciate it. So, when I teach you these mind maps during our public session or our internal session, during that week, I will also take a review test for you all so that you just keep recapitulating information. It's just a fun way that if at all you want to do this social media streaming, Amar, it is not available on app right now. This is the first time I created for any topic. I wanted to see you guys response. So if you're on live and you're seeing it, please put it on my Facebook. If you are on Zoom, then please let me know on the WhatsApp group later that if you want, slowly I can build this database, right? And it will be available to our students, and it will be created as a separate folder on the app. Now, for the review test, you will get about 9, 10 questions per topic, right? So what is the definition of erosion in dental terms? Then what are the main processes involved in erosive tooth wear? What is the primary cause? Aren't these exactly the situations that anybody can ask you in the examination? So when you have this wholesome preparation with the cue cards, your entire topic is revised. So hot notes is where you prepare, mock, and your daily assessments are where you practice the examination, but these are your actual time-saving revision tools, right? So mind map and then cue cards where you just spend 5 to 10 minutes per topic. And if you have about 100 topics and 10 minutes per topic, say about 1,000 minutes, now divided with your hour thing mathematically, you have the number of hours it will take you to go through the revision, right? So this is how the mind maps and cue cards are going to assist you with all the questions for your ultimate revision. Similarly, for abfraction, attrition, erosion, for individual topics, I have created these mind maps and cue cards. Now, the information would be coming from the hot notes as a summary, but it would be a quick last minute revision tool. So now in today's class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going through the mind maps, helping you recapitulate all the information. I will explain all these individual sub points. And cue cards, I will start testing you on a daily basis on the Facebook group, right? So cue cards, what I will do is, I will also try, Shalini, if I can give you the cue card technique for the therapeutic guideline, okay? So, all right, I hope everyone is excited and I can't wait to also start. And let's start with the session. All right, just because I want the screen to be fully visible and I want you all to focus on the screen, I will turn off the camera for a while. After discussing both the mind maps, I intend to also talk about and take one examination SBQ as an example and talk about how to solve, how to apply the concepts that we learned today to the examination question. All right. So let's start. I'll try to also increase the width and see if it gets even bigger for you. Let me know if this is a better experience. All right. So what you need to do is you need to focus on these subtopics that have been in the boxes heading. And I'm going to be talking about explanation of these individual subtopics. So when we start about tooth wear, we know there are 4 kinds. I have taken a lot of extra classes and special topic classes on tooth wear because it's one of the very crucial situation that gets asked in the exam, and also clinically when you start practicing you will start seeing patients on a regular basis complaining about those, asking for the management, and they would want to know that you know and you explain to them the etiology, you understand where are the clinical presentations, how you will diagnose it, once you diagnose it what are the stages of management planning, how will you start executing treatment, and then what will be the follow-up plan, what would be the professionalism aspect to it, how you have to handle this, because sometimes patient may have unrealistic expectations or may require certain treatment plan before any other treatment plan. So you have to professionally handle it and explain the patient how it can be, how it needs to be managed. So we'll do the erosion and attrition in today's class and abfraction and abrasion in the next one. The reason for this is that because attrition and erosion have clinical presentation which is similar, and abfraction and abrasion have a clinical presentation which is again similar. So abfractions and abrasions are predominantly NCCLs, non-carious cervical lesions, whereas your erosion and attrition are predominantly your occlusal lesions. And erosion also has buccal and the palatal component, especially when internally coming from your GERD or your, any situation where patient has tendency to vomit a lot, could be because of alcoholism, could be because of eating disorder. In that stage, palatal surfaces get involved a lot. Then if it's an extrinsic erosion and it's coming from the outside, then the buccal surfaces on whole also get involved. Erosion also has a tendency to be also accommodating and also being accompanied by attrition and abrasion, because erosion makes the enamel softer, demineralized, and easier to get lost due to your attrition and toothbrush abrasion. So that combined, accompanied where erosion is also accompanied by attrition as well as abrasion, that is defined as your erosive tooth wear, which is an umbrella term used for erosion which is accompanied with attrition as well as abrasion. Number one point, please put yeses and nos on chat so I know you're all following. And please give me big yeses so I know you're getting all the points that I'm making you, because these are exact examination conceptual points. You need to know them by heart on your tips. I'll try to cover as much clinical information as possible. So the subtopics are, first, and understand what is erosion, what is the cause of it, what are the clinical presentations, so what would be the surfaces affected, what is the pathophysiology, the undergoing, response, undergoing mechanism with which it progresses, what are the investigations that you will do, clinical information gathering cluster, how will you control it, right? And what are the types of it? Intrinsic type, extrinsic type, signs and symptoms, what are the risk factors, and then management, and then eventually treatment and evaluation. So this will summarize your erosion today. Now, I'm Nivedita, as you asked, I'm repeating erosive tooth wear, but I'm going to be covering it later also. Erosion individually is your tooth wear which is associated with the chemical action in the presence of any demineralizing agent which has a lower pH. Is that correct? Any acidic lower pH agent, when it leads to the loss of tooth structure associated with its chemical action, not physical, chemical action, is defined as erosion. Now, erosive tooth wear is a combined and umbrella term where there is a combination of erosion with attrition and abrasion, or abrasion. Like erosion alone is erosion, right? But when erosion is also in combination with attrition and or abrasion, you would define that term as an erosive tooth wear. And exam will give you these as separate options: erosion and erosive tooth wear. You would be aware to identify it based on the history. Suppose there is a patient who has a lot of acidic drink habit but also has bruxism. So he has erosion, then his enamel is weakened, and then his bruxism is also leading to added attrition. Even if he's not having attrition, the physiological forces are showing excessive attrition now because enamel has been weakened. So that's a combination of erosion and attrition. And when, even if he's not aggressively brushing with toothbrushes, then the toothbrush also has a tendency to give cervical lesions. Because the enamel is soft there, you will start losing the enamel on the cervical area. So it will become an NCCL also there, but that is predominantly not because of excessive brushing, but because the enamel was softer due to the erosion. So it will become an erosive tooth wear. So you have to find the predominant reason for erosion, either extrinsic or intrinsic, etiological factor, and then if it is also having cervical lesions, you will call it as an erosive tooth wear. Am I making full sense here? So far, so good? Now there are other sources. What are the other sources? And I have created SBQs on those concepts as well. The predominant factors are erosive agents, and then toothbrushing acts upon it as and other abrasive agents, even the diet. Specifically, the predominant vegetarian diet is also linked with your erosive tooth wear, because if you consume a lot of juices, right? So lower pH, and then leafy salads and a vegetarian diet is usually slightly on a lower pH side. And also the salads and everything requires excessive chewing and it's abrasive. So that leads to further attrition and abrasion as well. So again, your vegetarian diet would be linked with your erosive tooth wear. That's clear. So everybody understands the definition of erosion and erosive tooth wear so far. Now let's talk about the etiology. Now, etiology it is caused by the chemical dissolution of the heart tissues. It is caused by the acids. Acids which lead to erosion have to be really strong and different to the acids which are produced in the mouth by the fermentation of carbs. Because your caries also happens with the acid, right? Then how do you differentiate from caries and erosion? Right? The caries acids are slightly milder. The caries acids, which are produced by the fermentation of the carbs, your sucrose gets fermented by Streptococcus mutans, releases the acids, which again disturbs the demineralization, remineralization cycle. Yes or no, please? Is everyone up and alert, on the edge, and understanding? So, caries is the milder acids, whereas your erosion happens from the stronger acids, either by GERD, with the regurgitation of the gastric acid, which is quite lower pH, also with your acidic components of your diet, then your certain medications. Then in occupations, you can acquire it by wine tasting or acid vapors in their occupational environment. Then recreational acid exposure can be chlorinated pools. Is that right or wrong? So dietary, it can come from fruit juices, carbonated beverages, vinegars and pickles, etc. Medicines can come from your, various vitamin C's, ascorbic acids, HCl replacement therapies. Acetyl salicylic acid is also acidic if you're using it frequently. So some drugs in syrups can also contain it, and especially your carbonated beverages, which comes from the diet. Then occupational is wine, and then recreational is from the swimming pools exposure. Now, those are your extrinsic causes. What are your endogenous or intrinsic causes? Intrinsic ones are your coming from the stomach, right? Or from your vomiting. So regurgitation, GERD is there, absolutely, right? Then it's your eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia, alcoholism, and even severe stress can lead to GERD. Clear for everyone? So these are your intrinsic erosions: vomiting, regurgitation, and reflux. Extrinsic is coming from exogenous agents, whether it's medication, diet, occupational exposures, or recreational. So these are the two types. Everyone understands the two types and their causing factors. Now let's talk about the surfaces involved. Do you see how beautifully every box is getting covered here? And you have all the cue points, all the brief points already in front of you. So if you're missing anything that I'm saying, it's already there for you to revise in front of you on the screen. Okay? Now let's talk about these two boxes: the surfaces affected by intrinsic and surfaces affected by extrinsic. Now it makes sense, right? The intrinsic erosion will affect the palatal surfaces. Is that right? The palatal and the lingual surfaces. So the predominant surface affected by intrinsic agents are on the lingual, incisor, and occlusal surfaces. And the gastric reflux, the vomiting, they're all intrinsic. Occlusal surfaces of the molars, palatal surface of upper, anterior, and premolars. Clear for everyone? This is your intrinsic erosion involved surfaces: palatal, incisal, and occlusal. Now, extrinsic ones specially involves your buccal surface, because it's coming externally, right? So buccal surface of upper and lower anterior teeth are predominantly affected with your extrinsic agents. Somebody may have lemon sucking habit. That is also again leads to erosive tooth wear. They can lead to crescent shaped or dish shaped defects, right? That can be on buccal surface, more on maybe the palatal side, but it would be crescent and smoother. They will be rounded rather than very sharp like abrasion. Yes? So lemon juice sucking where the buccal surface and cervical surface gets involved will be rounded, right? And predominantly the buccal surface will be involved, whereas in abrasion and abfraction only cervically it remains localized. I'm going to show you picture also here because I wanted you to have a clear view. You see here the buccal surface involvement, how it is now in certain lemon sucking habits and other, the cervical can be more involved and crescent shaped lesions can be there, but you will not define them as abrasion abfraction because these are smoother and it involves the whole buccal surface. This is the erosive wear where buccally also you are involved, teeth and then incisally also involved. You see the aberrations on the enamel surface on the incisal edge. Then this is a severe involvement of enamel, severe erosion. Do you see the specific cup-shaped defects on the occlusal surface? Because attrition gives you flat surfaces. Now that's a differentiating factor between erosion and attrition. Attrition gives you a flat surface and erosion gives you rounded cupped shape defects. Yes or no, please? Is that clear so far? Now this is an erosive tooth wear. Do you see the incisal is gone, occlusal is gone, but it is also going to the entire buccal and cervical area. And some are flat also. So it is combined with attrition, erosion, and abrasion. This is a classic example of tooth wear. Erosive tooth wear. Yes? Now, this is a classic indicator of an intrinsic erosion because it has taken away the entire enamel on the palatal surface. So here you can look for intrinsic causes on the top picture. You see here? And this is your classic erosive tooth wear where you see the buccal surface lost, cervically also abrasion, and then flatter surface on the occlusal to indicate attrition as well. Cupping is lost. So cupping starts getting lost. So attrition is also happening. And then abrasion is also happening cervically. Here the palatal surface is gone. So the source of acid is internally. Makes sense? Clear? Yes. All right, now coming back. So we were talking about the surfaces from extrinsic erosion, and you've seen the buccal surface involvement and crescent shaped defects in combination with the buccal surface involvement, right? Now, what are the signs and symptoms? How the patient will show you the signs. So the signs would be you will be able to identify it with the round or sharp angles because it will be creating. How incisal surfaces are not involved in extrinsic? Kuljit, even in extrinsic, your incisal surfaces get involved. They do get involved, but mainly because in exam you will get options as buccal surface, incisal, and occlusal. Then you have to, from extrinsic, choose the one which gets predominantly involved, right, Kulji? So first would be your buccal, then your maybe incisal and occlusal, right? And sometimes some people have habit of swishing the drinks inside the mouth. So it is an extrinsic erosive agent, but if you swish it in the mouth, then you're also causing the palatal and lingual defect. Isn't that right? Everybody, does that make sense? When the patient is a wine taster or drinks acidic drinks and swishes it inside the mouth, so it will start with the buccal, but then you will also find the palatal involved surfaces. So in examination, of course, you know clinically you have a clear picture what may be going on, but in exam you will be tested. The keywords would be what are the main surfaces involved? What are the predominant surfaces involved? Does that make sense now? Right? It makes so much sense right now, right? So extrinsic one buccal surfaces, intrinsic erosion will be on the predominantly palatal, occlusal and lingual as well as incisal if it flows through the incisal surfaces as well. Again, in your internal also the options would be separate. What are the most surface involved? Palatal, occlusal, incisal. So then for your regurgitation and vomiting, occlusal surfaces get involved first, posteriorly, and then palatally on the anteriors, right? So both occlusal as well as palatal surfaces get involved. Now let's talk about her, and I'm going to cover your point. Let's talk about the signs and symptoms. So we'll see what happens on the soft tissues, what happens on the teeth, what are the visible signs. So you see sharp angles. Whatever the sharp angles are, they start getting rounded because they start getting eroded. Then there is dentine cupping or scooping. So whatever the occlusal surface you see will be in a scooped up manner, in a cupped manner, not flat as attrition, because it is a liquid flowing acid. So usually it will create a crescent or a scoop or a cupping. Enamel starts getting thin. Underneath, your dentine will start reflecting. Teeth will appear yellower, right? Any restoration which was given due to your acidic erosion, restoration will erode slower than your natural tooth. So you will start getting your restorative islands, right? Especially when you have amalgams done, you will find that amalgams are on slightly higher area than your tooth surface and you will define them as amalgam islands. Beautiful. So all the exposed root surfaces will also start showing softening because cementum will also be start getting demineralizing. It will become softer, right? And it would be far more rapid progressing situation than your caries because caries is still slow, milder acids. Isn't that right? So roots will also start feeling softer when you start probing them. Tactile sensation on roots is the greatest indicator, right? For the activity of root caries. So even on your acidic episodes on roots, it will start feeling softer. Isn't that correct? Is the entire picture forming in your mind or not? Is your mind map taking shape or not? Tell me that so far. We are halfway there. Now, what are the factors or risk factors of erosion? How you will identify in the patient's history and then how you will address it, right? So as your enamel basically becomes softer and softer with erosion, the moment you start brushing, the moment you start eating coarse food like salads, abrasive foods, the more and more your chances of abrasion and attrition increases, and the more and more your erosive tooth wear situation increases. That's why early arrest is required. So first identify the risk factors. How much is the acidic exposure? Number one risk factor, 20 drinks a day, daily vomiting episode, excessive alcoholism, daily going for wine tasting. Is it not a higher risk factor? So increased period of exposure is a higher risk factor. Frequency also is a risk factor. Time duration is also a risk factor. If it's coming from drugs or it's coming from your sports drinks and you're consuming it every day, again, persistent risk factor. Hot topic, very, very hot in ADC is the sports drinks consumption and controlling and managing erosion and carries risk in the sportsmen. Isn't that correct? One of the hot topic. So drugs and sports drinks, they're all risk factors. So you will start looking with a lens with all these keywords in the history, yes or no? And immediately you start seeing these words, sportsmen, sports drinks, mouth guard, your alert lights will go on because that's how deep you prepare with Winspert. Okay? So immediately everything in the history will start glowing to you, as I say in the classes also, that every keyword will glow up and you will immediately know its implication. And okay, you will see less plaque also when there is an active erosion. Interproximal surfaces usually do not get eroded, right? Because there they have acquired pellicle, but buccal and palatal and occlusal surfaces are predominantly involved. So you will see the signs also there. Now, these are your signs and symptoms. And then about your investigations. Question will ask you, how will you investigate? How will you manage? So investigations first, well, to investigate whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, you will start taking the diet assessment number one. So with the diet, you will get whether he's consuming acidic food or not, right? Once you have identified the causing agent, then you will come to and jump to a diagnosis, whether it's extrinsic or intrinsic type. Then you will know how to manage also. Once you have identified the etiological factor, only then you can identify it and then you can arrest it. Then the number one indicator is absence of stains. So it helps you to determine the activity. See, everything else, the amalgam islands, and the shiny facets, they all indicate that erosion has occurred. They are the indicator of erosion has occurred. Does not indicate point of time. Is that right? The point of time or activity is indicated by your absence of stains. Give me a big yes if you understand it. And you can actively use this to confirm the active erosion by deliberately, actively putting a stain on the tooth surface, recalling the patient in few days, and if that stain is gone, it indicates the active erosion exposure. Right? So accurate diagnosis is the number one step that will come from the diet assessment, complete history taking. Then you will start making your patient aware. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the doubts on the chat right now because right now I know whatever you're asking, somewhere down the line, I will be covering that point. So please be with me and listen to the information. Then see whether your question gets addressed or not. If remaining, let's take the questions in the last 10 minutes. Okay? Right now, I want you to be in a receptive sponge mode because a lot of information I'm giving and, moving your way. So first absorb that. You can rewatch the class as well. And most of your questions, what I'm noticing is I'm going to cover or have been covered. So accurate diagnosis is important. Patient awareness is important. Correct diagnosis will lead to managing the patient and eliminating the cause and educating the patient what is the cause. Give me a big yes if you agree it. This is a professional and health promotion question right now, right there. Once you have identified, once you have controlled the causative agent, then you start protecting the tooth or teeth from the further damage. If it is still active, first you arrest and try to address the cause. Then, if he complains of sensitivity, First, manage the sensitivity with desensitizing agents. That's an immediate first stage management. Then you go with restorative treatments depending upon the severity of the lesion. And if there is a severe tooth wear, you might also think about establishing vertical dimension, raising the bite if video is extremely lost, or you may go ahead with conformative approach and maintain the existing VD, vertical dimension. So there are two approaches, confirmatory approach and reorganized approach, and I have taught you both in the Odell case discussion. As you start your weekly plan, you will get to realize all the concepts, how they fit like a piece of puzzles in every class that is covered. Right? So extrinsic is the easiest to control. You see a sportsman, he's taking sports drink and then wearing mouth guard. Only management is you educate them, please wear the mouth guard first, then consume the sport drink. Easy management, right? He's consuming a lot of lemon juices, wines and everything. You tell them, please limit the exposure. Meanwhile, they can also notice, okay, my dietary habits are leading to this. They are becoming aware and they will make a change. The hardest ones to control are what? Intrinsic ones, where the reason is beyond the control of the patient, right? The bulimia nervosa, anorexia, do you think you can manage them within days or weeks? These are psychological disorders. Then GERD also, these are chronic conditions, right? So they require far more, management and more multidisciplinary approach where you would require medical help also. So in those cases, you will require referrals to the psychiatrist or other medical practitioners if it's coming from the gastric causes. Is that correct? So intrinsic erosion does not alone require your management, but also with other specialists, right? And extrinsic erosion requires and relies upon the patient's willingness to control the disease. All professionalism and health promotion concepts I'm giving you right now, is it making full sense or not? Yes, wonderful. So what can you actually educate your patient upon to control the extrinsic erosion? Especially when they're having acidic drinks and they don't want to control. We have questions like that in exam, don't we? Well, you will educate them to maybe, alternate it with water, especially sports drink patients. Questions where you cannot just tell them to stop consuming sports drinks because they may be playing at a professional level and they require replenishment of their minerals and glucose through their sports drinks. So drinking more water, alternating it with the meals, restricting the frequency of their foods and everything, consuming cheese and milk with those acidic, agents, especially wine tasters. So cheese and milk will immediately increase the pH in the mouth. When they're consuming soft drinks, sport drinks, for fruit juices, tell them to use straw instead of, consuming it directly. Then rinse the mouth with water after any acidic challenge, like after vomiting episode, just go and rinse the mouth with water and then maybe also a fluoride mouth rinse, right? Do not chew the vitamin C tablets, swallow them, right? Substitute your acidic drinks to the non-acidic alternative. So these are the kind of education, health promotion and education points that you will be giving to the patient. And these are your exact questions, aren't they? Everything elaborately has been given in the hot notes. All these mind maps expansions are given in the hot notes. So imagine you reading the hot notes every single day. You're preparing for every single question in the examination. Then other things that you can control, especially medically for intrinsic cause, the medical practitioners will be advising them the antacids. They can add the calcium and magnesium also to their diet, right? And then you can apply the fluoride varnishes to them. Agreed? And especially for erosion, now tell me, what is more effective? Acidulated gels or neutral fluoride gels? So in the exam, if you're given the option of mouth rinses acidulated gels and neutral fluoride gels. Please know, very, very important nugget here. Very important information piece here, that acidulated gels were found to be twice as effective than your neutral fluoride gels. Because of their lower pH, they integrated far more. It's given in therapeutic guidelines also. Bhargavi, if you remember, it's given on the Australian guidelines of erosion as well that we did. Remember? For nighttime reflux, you can also give the patients the self-application gels. They can apply in the evening and prevent the acidic episode in the evening. Kuljeet, listen to me. You have morning reflux and nighttime reflux in reflux patients. For those patients, you can give them the fluoride gels for home use. They can apply those fluoride gels, and acidic formula is better than the neutral formula. Clear for you? Clear for you, Kuljeet, or no? Self-application gels, because of the lower pH, acidulated gets incorporated within the enamel faster. It improves the uptake. And in wine tasters also, whenever they're going for a professional judging session, a day before, you can call them on the clinic and you can give them a professional application, right? Don't give them the same day because it can affect their taste sensation. That also is an exam question. No, Simmer, it would not be a lot of lower pH. That's why APF is more effective. It has been studied and it's even twice more effective than neutral. Can we memorize this fact? Night guards and occlusal guards are not indicated in active erosion cases because they trap the acids internally, KD. So you do not advise mouth guards in erosion patients, especially the active ones. The only challenge would be a mouth guard in a sportsman where he has to wear a mouth guard. It cannot be avoided. In those situations, you will advise them to consume the acidic sports drinks after wearing the mouth guard rather than before wearing it. Am I making myself fully clear with this point also? The only mandate situation is a mouth guard for sportsmen. Other people, you will not advise occlusal guards because of the risk of trapping of the acid underneath the surface and increasing the further damage. Only for sports person it is mandate because they cannot go and play a professional sport, high impact sports without mouth guard. To them, your advice should be to drink the sports drink after wearing the mouth guard. Fully clear or not? These are the options that you will get before, after, everything. So the entire situation should be crystal clear to you. Other things that you can do is you can maybe give an unfilled resin coating. You can give a GIC coating. You can do a adhesive restoration. You can even go with crowns, which are more invasive. And with crowns, you can also achieve a lost vertical dimension. If you're going for reorganized approach, you can do full mouth rehabilitation also for these patients. Sometimes patient may have financial challenges, so there you can do composite in anteriors and then crowns in posteriors, because composite will not stay occlusally on posteriors. In severely worn dentition, you have reorganized approach and conformatory approach, as I told you. So reorganized approach is where you increase and reorganize the vertical dimension and bring it back to the actual vertical dimension. That is reorganizing it. Conformatory approach is where you're conforming to whatever remains now. You're not reorganizing it, you're conforming to the changes. So your patient is like, it's fine, I don't want full mouth rehab, I don't want all crowns, just give me the replacement of the missing teeth on the existing vertical state. That is a conformatory approach. The detail of it I have covered under the ODEL session. Yes, so you will watch that, you will in depth understand more about the reorganized and conformatory approach. Understood? Everybody, so far so good. Now, these are the kinds of managements. These are the various stages of managements. Now, the last thing is, how will you continue to monitor your patient? After giving, also, you need to continue to monitor when you are arresting the causes, whether it's still active or not. So you will also monitor for the further enamel structure loss or stain loss. So you can put a scratch line with a scalpel blade and then see if the scratch diminishes or disappears over a period of 1 month, active erosion is present. Or you can also put a small dot of unfilled resin. Unfilled resin is what? Like a flowable resin, right? The flowable composite is the unfilled type, right? That also you can put there on the dot, and if you start losing a lip of it or an edge of it, that also indicates again active erosion, right? Then you will also keep your patient under long-term monitoring, right? Because you have given them composites, you may have given them crowns, and their habits may come back, their diets may come back. So keep your study casts and keep taking impressions maybe after few months and year to continue to monitor any further tooth loss or height or vertical dimension loss. So you will start with diagnosing, planning, right? When you're giving your, whether you're giving your fixed prosthesis, whether you're giving your RPDs, you will diagnose, plan, right? Maybe if you need some extractions, or you may need to do the surgical aspect as well to gain the height. Sometimes the tooth crown height can be so much lost that you don't have height to even get your crown on it. What are the two methods by which you can gain height? Surgical crown lengthening and orthodontic extrusion. Am I correct? Now, which is the ideal and preferred method if you're going for crowns and you require the height of the crown for retention? Which is the preferred method? Orthodontic extrusion is the preferred method over the surgical one, because surgical one compromises the crown root ratio as well, right? Orthodontic extrusion is more conservative and preferred. It takes about 3 to 6 months after surgery to have the full healing of the soft tissue and stabilize your gingival contours. Similarly, 3 to 6 months it will be required for orthodontic movement also. So none is faster than the other basically. But still the preferred one is orthodontic extrusion. And for the orthodontic extrusion, what is the preferred approach? The Dahl's approach, the Dahl's technique, right? So you can give an anterior bite plane, raise the bite, posteriors get separated, and they will start extruding. It will take 3 to 6 months to regain some height and extrusion of posteriors to get an reorganized approach. Isn't that right? Once you have re-established the posterior occlusal contacts, you can also give an occlusal splint after your erosion has been arrested for sure, so that later on there is no further damage with attrition, right? Or bruxism. So this is your complete understanding of erosion so far. Now coming to your attrition, which has a clinical appearance same as your erosion. Occlusal surface and incisal surface gets involved, but not your palatal and buccal surface. So attrition is the mechanical wear. Erosion was the chemical wear. Attrition is a mechanical wear where your occlusal and incisal surfaces get worn off due to either functional or parafunctional movements of the jaws. That's your attrition. It's a physical action of tooth against tooth. When it is due to abrasive toothbrush or third agent, external agent, abrasive diet or toothbrushing, that's abrasion. But when it's tooth rubbing against tooth, that is attrition. Now, whether that's functional loss or parafunctional habit loss, when tooth against tooth, it's your attrition. When tooth against abrasive agent or an external agent, and it's a physical agent, that's abrasion. And when it's tooth against a chemical agent, then it's erosion. And when tooth has flexural forces on it, that's your abfraction. So etiology of attrition predominantly is what? Parafunctional habit, because some physiological attrition is normal. The most important etiology of attrition is, please put down on chat, I want to know. It is number one, bruxism. Again, hottest ADC concept. Bruxism has its type, sleep bruxism, as well as your awake bruxism. Sleep bruxism mechanism and etiology is quite complex, right? It's mostly associated with sleep stage transitions. Awakened bruxism or daytime bruxism is triggered by stress and anxiety. That is why, because the mechanisms and etiologies are different, your management would also be different for both. Yes or no, please? So bruxism is the predominant etiology. Types of bruxism is sleep and awake. The common triggers of the bruxism are caffeine, alcohol, smoking, snoring, obstructive sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea is one of the, again, coming up hot topics. I'm going to add it to the hot topic list. And with this batch, I'm going to give you the latest guidelines on ADA and Australian Dental Journal on management of sleep apnea. This is going to get asked in exam for sure, and you're going to get questions on that. Very, very important and advantageous topic to know and learn and manage your patients in Australia with that knowledge. Stress and anxiety, antidepressant drugs, antipsychotics, amphetamines, cocaine. So these are your various drugs that can lead to bruxism. Tardive dyskinesia has an involuntary movements. Bruxism also comes from your antipsychotic drugs. Anyone remembers here? Very, very important, crucial, hot topic. Tardive dyskinesia coming from your antipsychotic drugs. Yes? Will you remember that? Tardive dyskinesia is involuntary movements. One of the presentation is bruxism. Trigger is the antipsychotic drugs. So sign and symptoms of bruxism would be, and attrition would be what? Clenching, heavy occlusal forces, crazed lines, which can be seen on the buccal surface into the enamel. Crazed lines are still within the enamel and not into dentine. That's why they may not be still sensitive and they may not require treatment, but at least they will give you an evidence that there is excessive masticatory forces being applied. Again, your cusp tips, incisal edges will start getting worn off. Your occlusal surface will start showing wears, flattened surfaces, right? Then horizontal and vertical fractures can also develop or not due to attrition and heavy bruxism. Crazed lines can also progress into fracture lines, cracks, and severe wear of upper and lower teeth can also show advanced adhesion, which can lead to short clinical crowns and collapsed occlusion. So loss of vertical dimension can also happen with adhesion. And then would you start getting pulp exposures with loss of enamel, or because it is slow, your reparative dentine will keep on forming and but your pulp chamber will be visible from the sclerotic dentine. So does it lead to exposure or does it lead to just the visibility of the pulp chambers underneath the sclerotic dentine? Because secondary dentine will start getting forming, so you will not have an exposure. Now, what are the investigations? Crazed line Shalini is an early stage of crack which is within only enamel, right? So crack is a broader term. Crazed line is a far more defined term which only indicates the development of crack within the enamel is equal to Kray's line. Is that clear, Shalini? Initially, you can see cupped areas in attrition as well, but eventually a line, they start getting flattened. Erosion is predominantly cupped and very excessively like a spoon shaped. But attrition has some cupping, but not as much. Cupping in attrition could be because of the shape of the opposing cusp. That's all. Eventually, it starts becoming flatter. So your investigations are radiographs, you will take study casts, and on the study cast, you will keep taking them every 6 months or annually. And when you are trying to give a full mouth rehab to an attrition patient, you will start by building up anterior lean composites or raising the bite, right? Suppose there is a severe attrition and you have reduced crown height and you want to get your surgical exposures or surgical crown lengthenings, right? Do you want to assess the bone levels and root morphologies? Whether the crown root ratio is appropriate or not to expose? So the periapical radiographs will be helpful or not? When you're, Prajani, I hope you got your answer. When you're planning your surgical crown lengthening for your full mouth rehabilitation and attrition, reorganized approach, the crown root ratio helps you how much of the surgical or bone loss you can compromise. Because you will be, with the surgical crown lengthening, you have to remove the healthy bone. With ortho, you save that bone. That is why radiographs will give you the remaining bone levels, root morphologies. Then you will make study casts. On that, you will also make a wax up, diagnostic wax up. On that, you will create a matrix, right? Then you will test on the raised bite, raised vertical dimension, that whether the patient can withstand this raised bite. Then you can give the composites on anterior or some kind of bite plane on anterior to cause the supra eruption of posteriors. That's your Dahl's appliance approach. Yes or no, please? In attrition, I'm saying the investigation is not for attrition. Radiograph in attrition you will use for planning your treatment when you're doing surgical crown lengthening, Nidhin. I hope you got your answer. The diagnostic investigation is for treatment planning there, not for diagnosis. Diagnosis of attrition is clinically, but radiographic investigation will help you for treatment planning, whether you can compromise the bone for surgical crown lengthening or not for the reorganized approach. Okay? This is the treatment. Now comes the management and arresting of cause, which is the etiological factor, the bruxism arresting. That is what also is desired, no? So for sleep bruxism, the management is different, and awake bruxism management is different. You will identify on the history which one your patient has, and then the management differs as per therapeutic guidelines as well. It is the primary cause, so you need to carefully identify it and then address it. How will you address it? The sleep one is with relaxation techniques, hypnotherapy, behavioral therapy, biofeedback, and improving sleep hygiene. That is your management for sleep bruxism. All your therapies, CBT therapy, hypnotherapy, relaxation techniques and therapies, that's for your sleep one. Whereas your awake bruxism is due to stress, so stress management is most important. And then the appliances, the full coverage occlusal splints. Which splint do we do for bruxism? Everybody, especially I see some March candidates are here, so you would know it immediately. But also for September candidates, I am going to explain to you in our internal classes individual situation and which splint to choose for which situation. When it's TMJ problem, what splint to go? When it's MPDS problem, what splint to go? When it's bruxism problem, what splint to go? When it's sleep apnea problem, what splint to go with? Is that clear? Crystal clear. You will, by the end of program, will have clear cut information and knowledge about what is the patient situation and which splint to choose. You will not just go, oh, we'll give a splint. You will be so knowledgeable. You will even tell, oh, it's a joint problem. I'll go with this splint. Oh, it's a sleep apnea problem. I'll go with this splint. Oh, it's a MPDS or a bruxism problem. I will choose this particular splint. Yes and no. Yes or no's, please, if you're ready to be knowledgeable to that extent. Yes, the answer to bruxism is the Michigan splint. Absolutely correct. Those who said it. Okay, so you will first identify the morning awakened bruxism and you will know that it comes from stress. So you will send them for stress management and you will also give them occlusal splints for further damage protection. Now, based on these two mind maps, every time now you see this mind map, you will know what is the definition, what are the types, what are the signs and symptoms, what are the uses of StudyCast, protective measures, etiologies, common triggers. All the questions, all the concepts that can be asked in the exam are here or not. On one single page, all your entire chapter is summarized for you. Now, mind you, this is not a shortcut to jump to. Your hot notes will make sure you understand the information from all the sources, all this theory, because hot notes itself is summary of 5 books at least. We worked on at least 2 3 articles per topic. We've brought sources are also mentioned. See, Odell, sources, article, sources, Sturdivant. Every source is mentioned and all this information has been brought to you here so that you don't have to go and read 4 books at a time. Sturdivant pictures, Sturdivant source, Sturdivant definition. Everything has been brought to you from 4 5 sources. So it is also a summary, right? And then to further revise this, then comes your mind maps. So this is not shortcut to jump to. This is a ladder that you have to climb. This is a pyramid approach. By watching the thousands and past papers and Odell classes and special topic classes, the CV classes, mega master classes, ultimate advanced 5 classes, doing the hot notes, summarizing the information, and then the tip of the iceberg or the tip of the pyramid is these mind maps. And every week on the WhatsApp group and on the Facebook group, I'll make you practice these cue cards from these concepts. So, slowly by slowly, in 22 weeks, we will review the hottest hot topics. And you will keep studying on a regular basis from your hot notes. Now, let's see whether we can apply the concepts that we learned today in this SVQ, a real time exam question. Let's see if we can apply them. Are you ready to solve this question with me? Everyone. So, man who comes to you, he's a 53-year-old man, has an upper complete denture and mandible has premolar to premolar, 3.5 to 4.5. The composite fillings are looking good in appearance. He has few composite fillings also on his premolar. He's undergoing a divorce, has been taking SSRIs, works in a quarry and drinks cola wine and chews gums and breaks and also smoker. Now he has been to the dentist in the past, not been to the dentist in the past 3 years and only wants to visit when there's a problem. He has mild sensitivity in the premolar area. And you see that there is hard dentine and saucer shaped defects on the occlusal surface of lower anteriors. Now, Tell me, what's going on with this patient? Saucer-shaped defects. Dentine is hard, that means sclerotic dentine is formed. And now, do you also see some triggers in the history? Do we also see some triggers? Now the glowing effect is coming to you or not, that I said? All the history glowing effect is coming to you or not? The moment I said that, or when you are preparing a concept so deeply, every point in the history will start making sense. So let's do the glowing method. How the keywords are glowing. He has SSRIs, a trigger for bruxism. He has stress, a trigger for bruxism. Recent divorce, trigger for bruxism. Excessive cola and wine, erosive, extrinsic erosive agent. Smoking, trigger for bruxism. Yes or no, please? Immediately, everything I know that there is a bruxism and there is an extrinsic erosion. Now, based on the options, if I'm given erosive tooth wear as one of the options, based on bruxism also being a present factor and too much stress and an extrinsic erosive agent, the best answer for this would be erosive tooth wear. Is that right or wrong? Now, because I don't have that option, in that case, yes, I have to choose from these. So what does this appearance show you right now? Predominantly, when you don't have erosive tooth wear as an option, what is our predominant reason of these saucer-shaped lesions? How will you choose? Is it intrinsic? We start applying the rule out technique. Because you just did the concept, immediately all answers will start making sense to you. But in exam, you have to apply the rule out technique. It is erosion, so let's keep A and B. It is involving occlusal surface, so let's keep C also. But it's not NCCL, so we can easily rule out D and E. First, let's rule out D and E. Yes? Because it's not NCCL, we can easily rule out D and E. Now next is, it's either erosion or attrition. We have the elements for bruxism. We have the elements but a direct factor for erosion. So bruxism only we have triggers, but there is no presenting complaint by the patient directly. Right? That's why attrition is still secondary. Excessive cola and wine consumption and involvement of these occlusal surface in a cup-shaped manner, like a crescent, is an indicator for your erosion. So C also gets ruled out because it's not as flat. It is erosion. Now between A and B, this patient is not complaining of any GERD or reflux, but rather the cola and the wine consumption. So it's an exogenous agent. So intrinsic also gets ruled out. Answer becomes A. Now you decide to perform some treatment on the given teeth and you require local anesthesia with adrenaline. So is there any current medication contraindication with adrenaline? Is it contraindicated with adrenaline? No. So there is no contraindication of SSRIs with adrenaline. So yes becomes an incorrect option because yes means that there is a contraindication which becomes wrong. So easy to rule out option B. That's ruled out. Vision can be considered in this patient, but there is only an implied indicator that bruxism may be present because you have not diagnosed bruxism yet. With this scooped out shape also, extrinsic erosion becomes more evident because compared to attrition versus erosion, the incisal scooping out effect is more predominantly present in erosion than attrition. Okay? And if I add another option of erosive tooth wear, now what would be the best answer then? Joffin, other people in the first question. If another option was erosive tooth wear, then your best answer will be that. Clear for everyone or not? So going further, the second question, is there a contraindication of SSRI with adrenaline? Answer is no. So the B option gets ruled out because it says yes. Now A and C both are correct statement. Now this is another deeper technique to answer. One is rule out technique. Second is, does it answer my question? Will you ask yourself this question in examination or not? Does it answer my question? Will you apply this technique? Second technique. First technique is rule out. Second technique is, does it answer my question? So there is no contraindication to the local anesthesia with adrenaline, right? There is no contraindication. Is that correct? Yes, a correct statement. But does it answer my question? Does the patient's current medication have a contraindication with adrenaline? Now, isn't that the beautiful concept to know? Does it answer my question? Will you ask this question yourself after ruling out the obvious wrong ones in two familiar options? That's your breaking the deal concept. Does it answer my question? There is no contraindication to LA with adrenaline, we know that, but does it answer my question? Does the patient's current medication is a contraindication with adrenaline? No, SSRI is not a contraindication with adrenaline. So A and C both being correct, now you know the obvious, most accurate answer. And that's what happened in the exam. Multiple options are correct. Sometimes more than one options are correct, but does it answer my question? Does it answer the asked question? Isn't that a beautiful trick and technique to learn or not? After your rule out, it's your does it answer my question? The next question. Now, the appearance of the incisal surface of lower anterior suggests. Now, do you see these pink dots in the center here? Here also, within the dentine, do you see these red surfaces visible? What is this? We just talked about it. Is it the calcification of pulp, staining caused by cola, caries, or your pulp exposure? So it is not there is a calcification of pulp, but does the calcification of pulp, sorry, control, wait. This is not pulp exposure because pulp is not exposed here. It is not caries as well. It is not staining, but it's your calcification of pulp as in sclerosed dentine, which is making the pulp reflecting through it. Is that correct? That is exactly what we also read in the mind map. That sclerosed dentine leads to the pulp being visible underneath it, but there is no exposure term. So the exposure term makes the option incorrect. Pulp exposure becomes incorrect. Is that right? Caries also is incorrect because its cause is extrinsic erosion. It caries would be black in color, brownish in color, yellowish in color, and not caries least affects the incisal surface and doesn't have this clinical presentation. Ruled out. It is not cola stain. Colas are acidic. They lead to the erosion of enamel and makes teeth appear yellower due to dentine getting reflected. This is calcification of pulp. Why this is correct? Because the pulp chamber is getting calcified with the secondary dentine or tertiary dentine here issue. Is that right? So the pulp is getting calcified by your tertiary or sclerotic dentine. When the dentine deposition happens rapidly, it gets sclerosed, which is translucent and makes you see through the pulp reflection. Clear? So first question answer is extrinsic erosion. Second question answer is no, SSRI is not contraindicated with adrenaline. And this question answer becomes it's the calcification of the pulp that is visible underneath the lost enamel. Is that right? It is reducing in the height. Dentine is reducing in height as well, but more secondary dentine is depositing, but pulp starts getting visible through the sclerosed dentine. Now, what is the reason for gingival enlargement? So the reason for gingival enlargement is in this situation, he's taking SSRI. Do you think SSRI leads to the gingival enlargement? Secondary dentine will be formed in any kind of tooth wear which is slow enough to lead to the dentine forming underneath. With erosion also, with attrition also, secondary dentine will form. It is not only uniquely associated with attrition. So the reason of gingival enlargement is, first, SSRI does not cause your gingival enlargement. It is not linked with drug-induced enlargement. What are the drugs leading to the enlargement? Can anyone tell? Dilantin, calcium channel blockers, so your antihypertensives, right? Anti-epileptic, right? So anti-epileptic drugs, antihypertensives, barbiturates, some immune suppressants also, cyclosporins, right? Is that correct? Anti-epileptics, immune suppressants, and antihypertensives. Barbiturates also included in that, right? So SSRIs are not included. Not due to the gum chewing, and trauma from occlusion leads to localized recession, right? Or some craze lines or cracks, or some localized pain on biting. Those would be the signs associated with trauma from occlusion or not? Craze lines or cracks, localized recession, right? Or localized enamel attrition facets. Even abfraction can be seen in trauma from occlusion. Enamel crystals lost in the cervical area can be seen from trauma from occlusion or not? So some cervical defects can also happen. So that's why this swelling and enlargement here in the premolar, which is only in the two teeth, would be due to the localized plaque accumulation. Okay? All right. So now there is a variation of this same SBQ where the same eroded stumps were there, the vines were there, the smoking was there, and everything was there. I want to cover this one question here for the management part, and I want to see whether you grasp this concept. Look at this question 4. So you have posterior teeth and anterior teeth affected by erosion, and cost was a factor for the patient. and he wants to increase his video. First of all, tell me, when you're increasing the video, is it reorganized approach or confirmatory approach? There's a reorganized approach, but cost is a factor. So if cost is a factor, you will only give crowns and posteriors and composites in anterior. If cost is not a problem, you can go full mouth crown. So in anterior composites, still, how will you regain the vertical dimension? Will you give a removable partial denture for 2 weeks? Will it raise the bite? Will it lead to the supraeruption of posteriors if you only give RPD for the missing teeth? No, right? You have to first separate the posteriors. Well, by restoring the anteriors with composite, you can raise the bite, you can separate the posteriors, but can you put composite on some of the posteriors also? If you put composite on posteriors, will it separate them? Will it achieve the separation? Will it achieve the supraeruption? No. So again, B gets ruled out, right? Now, posterior dial appliance, when you give appliance posteriorly, you're practically not separating posteriors, you're separating anteriors. Do you want the separation of posteriors or separation of anteriors when you want to achieve the vertical dimension on a reorganized approach? You will separate the posteriors, so you can't give a posterior Dahl's appliance. Ruled out again. You will give an anterior bite plane. When you give an anterior bite plane, it allows the posteriors to erupt. That's how you increase its vertical dimension. And then eventually you will give crowns on posteriors and composite on anteriors. Isn't that a beauty to resolve any complex question now? Do you need some cheap tricks? Like, oh, look for the word where there is no, or look for the word where there is only. Do you need to rely when you're a winsport on cheap tricks? Tell me that. Once for all. Do we rely on simplistic, simpleton methods? Or do we rely on the knowledgeable, intelligent rule out techniques? And every single word in the option, in the history, in the question is glowing in front of you once you are fully prepared. Only concepts can make you crack this exam. If you try to mug up, oh, look for the word where the yes is given, look for the word where the no is given, look for the word where the, only word is given, that's just, you know, the tiny tools that you may choose. But at Winspurt, you are not reliant on those cheap tricks. You're reliant on your solid knowledge base, and see then how the keywords and information glows in front of your eyes. That's the kind of confidence, that's the kind of knowledge, and that is the preparation that makes you crack the exam with 4 A's. And that's how we get the maximum passes from Winspurt. How do they calculate the amount of extrusion align? You will take a pre-treatment study cast, and then you will take 3 to 6 months after giving the bite plane study cast, and you will measure it clinically as well as on study cast. Clear for you, Align? Thank you so much, guys. I hope you appreciated the today's class and learned how you apply the techniques to the actual questions rather than just hoping that exam will serve you the words not, yes, only. Please, that's baby steps. That's kindergarten level of dentistry. We don't do kindergarten level. We do beyond university level dentistry here. That's what I'm going to teach you. Now, first for third one here, tell me when you have. Okay, another question. How will you know the process is still active? So for erosion, tell me what is the answer that you will choose immediately. Dentin is stained, dentin is unstained, shiny demarcated facets, restoration margins elevated. Very, very clear from the session. It is the unstained dentine. Ruling out becomes like a piece of cake when you're informed like that. Isn't that correct? So please, my apologies if you were looking for some circus tricks to help you immediately find an answer. Sorry. Winspert leads you with a very intense, hardworking road. But then, when you look at the question and when the keywords start glowing, when the concepts start glowing and the options start making sense, that's where you mark the confident, accurate answer in examination. And that is where I will take you. And in the end, I promise you, by August, you guys would come and tell me, this is the word you missed, this is the concept you missed. And I would love to see you coming back to me and then teaching me the concepts back. With such detailed study of operative and every other subject hot notes, classes, and doing our conceptual classes, practicing on our Facebook group, these cue cards and conceptual practicing will in examination will make you shine out with the confident, knowledgeable candidate that deserves to crack this exam. So you will be that deserving, confident candidate. So answer here for the second question is dentin is unstained. And for third one, management of the case. So management of erosion starts where? Tell me. Treatment of underlying condition, sealing the dentine with desensitizing agent, giving a night guard, temporary restoration, or Dahl's appliance. Well, you might be doing all of it till it's active. You will not do C. If I change the question, what will you not do? All you will do except, then the answers become C, because in active condition in erosion you will not do a night guard. Isn't that correct? Yes or no, please? Right now, what would be your priority in management? First is to address the underlying condition. Will you or will you not address the dietary acids that the patient is consuming? 10-20 cola drinks on a regular basis. Educate, identify, bring patient awareness. If sensitivity, give desensitizing agents. Eventually give your restorations. If he wants the vertical dimension to be increased, then Dahl's appliance. Dahl's appliance will be as an anterior bite plane, where you will have a bite plane anteriorly and the posteriors will be separated. They will start supra erupting. Your video will be beautifully increased and you give a reorganized approach, crowns and composite restorations at a newer vertical dimension. And once you have arrested the cause of erosion, then my dear, go ahead and give a occlusal guard to protect the restorative surfaces from bruxism tooth wear. Yes or no, please? So after completely managing his diet, his smoking, and he comes back. So what do you think brings the drastic change in the patient when you control their smoking and drinks versus giving them composites and anterior? The improvement in the systemic health is the number one reason when your patient will start feeling great from that moment on, right? The moment they start quitting, the moment they consume less colas, reduce sugar in their body, immediately improves the energy and the mood. So the mood and energy is predominantly associated, number one, with the diet, internally how they feel, the systemic health. So this and more questions like this are all covered in our Mega Master file. our ultimate advanced file, and all this rule out technique, does it answer my question, and various other critical thinking skills have been taught in your internal classes of MegaMaster and ultimate advanced file classes. Along with that, I will do the new ultimate advanced file volume 2 is almost ready. So during our live lectures, we will talk about and we will start discussing ultimate advanced file volume 2. Every week, when you have a mock examination subject wise under our live classes, we will discuss those mock questions applying the same concepts and same techniques that we did today. I will show you the references and evidences as I teach you the techniques there. Which file, Sirat, are you asking? None of the files will be taken off the app. All the classes will be there, and the newer classes also will keep on adding as I start taking the live classes now. Okay. Ultimate Advanced File 25 will be there. That's volume 1. And now I have created the volume 2. So I'll start taking in the live classes volume 2, and you will start watching the volume 1 classes also and volume 2 classes also. Smoking triggers attrition. Sorry, smoking triggers bruxism, as I showed you. It's also given in TG, right? Smoking is an important trigger factor for bruxism, along with your stress and anxiety and SSRIs, antidepressant drugs. So that further leads to your attrition. I hope it was helpful, guys, and I'm so happy you love the mind maps and you love the cue cards. I was so anxious last night, trust me. So I always, no matter how many classes I take, it's been 8 years, but I still am a beginner. I always think that I will always be a beginner, and I love to feel like that, and I love to believe that there is so much to learn, there is so much to still, know in this vast industry, that I would humbly call myself a beginner all the time. And I was so anxious and nervous that I don't know how you will receive this. But as I can see, you guys have given this file, this mind map, such a beautiful, reception, such a beautiful welcome. And it will definitely motivate me to create the mind maps for all the hot topics. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see your comments, and I'm so happy to see your comments on the chat here. So I'm happy that you loved it. Thank you so much, Archit, Sirat, Sneha. Thank you, Simran. Thank you, Sira. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful, wonderful compliments, and I'm super happy. So this is actually was supposed to be a surprise class, and it was an extra class because officially we start 30th March, which is our orientation. I'm going to just brush you up, brief you up with the process again, and then the week 1, day 1 officially will start on Monday, which will be April 1st. No, which will be 31st March. And then the first official class of this September batch will be 1st April, Tuesday. That would be our public session. And first internal class would be Thursday. That would be our first internal class of September 25. I'm super happy and I welcome you to the Winsport family with all the open arms. And if think about it, if this was the trailer, or if this was the first entrance to the program, how the rest of the course is going to be. And I'm so happy that we have turned the learning into so much fun. And I see that you guys are, I can see how excited you are with your comments. This is the level of energy, excitement, and positivity that I desire for you to maintain throughout these 5 months. And it will be translated beautifully on your 2 exam days. And Australia deserves such levels and such kinds of dentists. I assure you that. So when you maintain the zeal, when you maintain this attitude, trust me, Australia is going to welcome you with open arms. They need and they want such dentists that you are becoming. So please keep becoming a Winsport, and I'm here at every stage to help you. Thank you so much, Kalpana. Thank you. Sorry, I can't see the name here. It's Nidin, it's Shirisha, Nuria. Thank you, Nivedita, Preeti, Malav, Preet. Manuel, Maria, Jagjit, KD. Thank you, Sneha, Sirat. I wish I could take screenshots of all your beautiful, beautiful comments every time that you send me on WhatsApp or here. And I love to share it with the group also because you guys send me such heartfelt messages. And that is the purpose, to always keep your spirits high. That's what I'm trying to strive and achieve. And me and my team, we achieve and we desire for you to always feel like that. Thank you so much, Kulji. Thank you for your compliments. And I'm excited to see you guys on Sunday. Please make sure you're watching the orientation and get all motivated and geared up. And then from Tuesday next week, we start our classes, and Monday you will start your week one day one. If you're moving ahead already, if you joined me early, if you joined for dual course, or if you joined early, please know that you don't have to go back to week one day one. You will continue your plan. Your course progress is intact on the app. You're not worried at all. Okay? All right. Thank you, Harnan. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you on Sunday. Bye bye.